Mr. Mthethwa Baba Nyambose, MECs, executive mayors who are here, ikakhulu the executive mayor yalapha esikhona, councillors who are with us here, members of parliament, national parliament, and the provincial legislatures, the family of Chief Albert Luthuli, Omadlanduna, fellow South Africans, sanibonani nonke. Ninjani nisaphila kodwa? Kumnandi lokho. We greet you all on this important occasion to immortalize the colossus of our struggle for liberation, Chief Albert Mvumbi Luthuli. And would like especially to greet the pastors who are here, ikakhulu abaphume esontweni lakhe, isonto elinamandla, elinomlando, ohamba nabantu ngaso sonke isikhathi. We welcome you indeed, brothers, our religious leaders. We'll also welcome his colleagues as well, the traditional leaders, particularly one of them who is in parliament, the deputy minister, Ubaba Wolomisa, no deputy minister Ubaba Usalfi, where's Mfundo? Nabo bonke abakhona. On this day, 50 years ago, our country lost one of its most illustrious sons and Africa's first Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Chief Albert Luthuli, under mysterious circumstances. The official report was that he was run over by a train. The report remains unconvincing to this day. Given the brutality of the racist apartheid regime and its attitude to the leaders of the mass democratic movement, the death of Chief Albert Luthuli will continue to be shrouded in suspicion. He left behind a legacy of peace, non-racialism, anti-racism, and the quest for freedom, justice, and a better life for all. I know that we have among us who know Baba Luthuli and who know his activities and other things about his life and times. But there are also younger people in the generation who may not know some of the things that happen, in particular when the organization was banned, and why we feel so strong about this giant of a leader. Some of the leaders who are giants today used to envy him and wished they could be like him in position of leadership. Let me just take a few minutes to touch on some political moments where he featured in our history. Not in details, just a few. Firstly, Ubaba Luthuli grew up through the ranks of the ANC. But doing other things in society, as it has been indicated here. As a member of the ANC, he was active here in the province, known also there came a time of a political moment where the person who was the leader of the ANC here in the province, at that time they were not called premiers or chairpersons, they were called presidents. There's a very famous leader here, Umashata Mnyama, champion, was very outspoken, very critical of other leaders as well. Shortly after 1949, he made mistakes. And the mistakes he made, and I'm not going to say what were the mistakes, exposed him that he did not know in greater depth the ANC policies, taking what he said, particularly after that incident. And the leaders were shocked because they came here to take inspection in local. And he took them around. Utata Sulu was at that time the Secretary General. And instead of saying, look, that's where the damage was done, he said something else. What? Udlule lapho Zulu. Walalisa ucaca lapho Zulu. Wahlabana lapho Zulu. Now you couldn't say so when there was an unfortunate clash between the people who lived together. So the leadership believed the man is not so deep in understanding the policy and felt he needed to be changed. A new president must come in. It was during that political moment that Chief Luthuli was approached to stand for the provincial presidency. And this giant, to those who came to him, he said, I will never refuse to be asked by the organization to undertake any task. But I can't do so when just people who know me here ask me. I don't know what is the thinking of the national leadership on this matter. He says, only if I'm told, because I don't want to cause friction within the organization. Then the provincial leadership consulted the national leadership on their proposal. He was indeed accepted by the national leadership, and they sent a message to him that this is an instruction from the ANC leadership. In fact, those who came to you had consulted with us. Only then did he say, then I accept that the organization has asked me to stand as a president. He was then nominated, and indeed, the provincial conference to elect a president was organized. Champion was a very outspoken person and not shy about issues. Now, Chief Luthuli, as you know, he was a chief, and Champion wanted to use that one as a point of criticizing and informing the voters that don't vote for Luthuli. But the organization here was very clear what they were doing. So when people got into the hall, Champion was standing at the door, directing people. Those who want to vote for Congress, the ANC, you go this side of the hall. Those who want to vote for Amakosi or Ndabazabantu, this side of the hall. He was then telling them that Luthuli, because he goes, he's a chief, he actually represents Ndabazabantu. And of course, as always, some leaders undermine the intelligence of the followers. The outcome of that conference was that Chief Luthuli was elected as the president of the Natal province overwhelmingly. And there was jubilation. And indeed, Champion was defeated. Of course, Champion did not just believe he was a leader. He almost believed he was owning the whole of Durban. He's a man, even if you look back in the history, he quarreled with John Dube, he quarreled with many, because he had his own views. And this is what Luthuli felt should not happen, that he should be fighting with Champion for his own sake. If the organization said so, then he will take the task. And he did become the president of the ANC. Provincial presidents were there. That's why the national president at that time was called President General, because he was a president over all other presidents. It was indeed one political moment that gave Chief Luthuli to rise and be known and therefore who will now attend the meetings of the ANC at a higher level. Of course, he organized in the province. He was one president who did not sit. What he said when he became the president, he cannot be a president who does not know the strength of his organization in the province. And he does not want to listen to reports. He himself must organize. So he crisscrossed the areas, organizing, which led to this province getting a culture of organizing members into the ANC. Because he said to comrades here, if I'm a president and I'm sitting at the helm of the organization, and I don't offer membership where I come from, I've got no organization, how can I be a president? I want to feel that as a president, I have organized, my province is strong. That was one moment of political activism of President General Umadlanduna. The times were changing because times change all the time, as you know, and I'm saying all of this because some people, when they see happenings in the ANC, they think it's the first time. They think it's because these people now are different from others. There are many people who don't understand the ANC, who think that the ANC belongs to individuals. Some will tell you a story that is funny, that the ANC or Mandela is a fan. They don't really realize that times change. The ANC of John Dube was not like the ANC of Mandela and Sisulu, because times had changed. And the ANC is capable of adapting to new conditions and improving its policies all the time. And the time of Chief Luthuli are most interesting. They're all interesting, but most interesting. After that provincial conference, there was coming the National Elective Conference. When that conference was coming, there was an issue that had emerged of the defiance campaign, which was influenced by the ANC Youth League on the decision they took on a document that was called the Program of Action, that called, among others, the defiance of the oppressive laws. And it has a lot of details going forward, which was adopted by the mother body and became the program of the ANC. At that time, the president of the ANC was Morocco. He seemed not to be ready to lead the defiance campaign. And the youth was indeed unhappy about this and pressurized as they were going to the conference, that Morocco must be removed. He was the second one to be removed. They also influenced the organization to remove Dr. Zuma, who had helped them to open up a space for them. But when it came to militant policies, he was a little bit shaky too. So they brought Morocco. But Morocco was, according to them, even more problematic. So they wanted a president that is going to be in a position to lead the ANC into the defiance mode, action, volunteers, going to prison. It looked like Morocco was not very ready. And there was a big look, who is going to be the president? And I love these moments because in the ANC they always come. And they test the politics of the leaders at all material times. The Transvaal, there were 4 provinces. The Transvaal had the name of a very powerful leader in the Eastern Cape, Dr. Njongwe. The Free State had Moroka. The Natal had Chief Luthuli as candidates for the presidency. The Western Cape had no person because they did not want Dr. Njongwe to become a president who came from the Eastern Cape, for reasons I'm not going to say. So they came to the conference without a candidate. When they came to the conference, and Natal had Chief Luthuli, they looked around and said, we are going to vote with you. So the Eastern Cape voted with Natal. So Luthuli won, because they had heard also his style of work and what type of a leader he was. He became the President General and therefore continued with the campaign, militant campaign. And it was this time that elevated him to the level where he could display his talent, could display his capabilities, how to lead an organization. He was known in many circles, and therefore he attracted a number of sectors. As you know, he was a man of the people, and he played several roles in the community. Chief Luthuli was a traditional leader, a chief. He attended all meetings called at Kwanongoma by King Cyprian, Isilo Sangaleso Skat, and got to know the traditional leaders even broadly in the province. And he was running his chieftainship here excellently. But he was also a Christian, not just a Christian in general, a preacher who could turn people, make people understand that there is God. They've got to prepare their future. He was known in the circles of education as a teacher who once was the principal of some schools. As you heard, he loved music as well. He was a choir master in Amanzimtoti College. So in the music he was known. He also was known in sports, particularly soccer. He served in some associations. He was a very active man. He knew the people at all levels. He knew the organizations. That's why he could run the organization in the manner in which he did. But he was also, as you have heard, a cane grower. So he knew small business people, particularly farmers. So he had an understanding of his people. And he knew exactly what we were looking for. And this leader emerged and began to command a respect that strengthened the organization. He was a far-sighted leader. In the ANC, when he came in, the ramblings that had been there slightly between those who were communists and those who were nationalists were handled with greatest care. Everybody in Luthuli's National Executive Committee was comfortable. Some nationalists came here to talk about some of the ANC leaders, mentioning people like Stephen Dlamini, etc. That, hey, we've got communists here in the ANC. He said, there's no problem. In fact, the names we are mentioning are the comrades I trust most. So they couldn't penetrate to Luthuli. Of course, Luthuli on this point understood the communists very well. He trusted them. When he was asked in the treason trial, why, as a chief and a businessman who was working with the communists, he answered the question that in my life working with the communists, I've found them to be most trustworthy, honest, and more committed to do the work to liberate our people. And that's why I work with them. And of course, we had communists of a different type at the time, real communists who understood communism, who were fighting for socialism, who also had worked hard to create a relationship between the ANC and the communists, because the communists of that time understood the importance of this relationship. And they never said a word against the ANC. In no time did they say so. They understood the importance of working together. They were not careless. It would have been a mistake, even at that time, to say anything against the ANC, because those communists understood this link, that it was helping them in their route to socialism. Whilst the ANC was not a socialist organization, they understood the struggle sufficiently. Because I believe the ones we have now don't understand their task sufficiently, and as to how they will reach that point. Luthuli brought that harmony, that communists and nationalists worked together under his leadership. He actually trusted one of the leaders of the Communist Party more than many other people. Luthuli was a uniter of the organization as well as people. People came for the advice to him, including white people. Before the Progressive Party was formed, those who formed the Progressive Party of the white South Africans came to consult with him. He was a man that anyone would want to consult. He was respected by all. When he was banned, he had a lot of meetings around Groundville, in the sugar canes, in the bushes, at night, underground meetings. So his political moment as a president saw the increase of the numbers of volunteers. He also dressed like a volunteer. But this did not end there. Luthuli's moment of political maturity. It was during his time that the Freedom Charter was crafted. After a massive door-to-door campaign that took place, which he participated on. In other words, during his time as a president, the clarity of the policies of the ANC became so clear, particularly with the drafting of the Freedom Charter, which is a basic document for ANC policies. It was during his presidency. It was during his presidency that there was a deliberate emphasis on the methods of struggle, non-violent struggle. Deliberately, because the enemy was so violent. And the ANC adopted a non-violent method of struggle so that people could struggle, but not to be shot all the time. And they felt they wanted to pursue this and expose the National Party government of what it was. So they deliberately emphasized no other struggle did so. Partly because the struggling people in South Africa were faced with very violent oppressor. And they were saying, we are peaceful. But another political moment where our president showed his capacity to comprehend and hear the logic of the debate. It was when many in the ANC, particularly young people, who were no longer that young men maybe, who were saying, we have done everything, we're being banned, we're being banished, we're being shot at, everything. This non-violent policy is not taking us anywhere. Maybe the time has come for us to take up arms. The debate began with two people. Walter Sisulu, Nelson Mandela. Two of them discussed this matter and agreed that the time has come. And they agreed that the matter must be raised in the National Executive Committee. And Tata Sisulu said, Deba, you will raise it. You know how to raise matters. And of course, Matiba was brave. He raised the matter in the National Executive Committee. It was crushed by Moses Kotane and said this was an adventurism of the first order. And Matiba was silenced. When they came back, they asked the question, where did we go wrong? Then Sisulu said, we went wrong because we did not lobby Kotane first. Diba, go and have a cup of tea with him and talk to him. I know he will understand because he's a man of logic. That's what Matiba did. And when Kotane had listened and asked questions and debated, he was convinced these young men were correct. And he said, raise the matter in the next meeting, in the National Executive Committee. And the matter was raised, and others were surprised that Kotane is not jumping on this young man. Instead, he's allowing the matter to be discussed. He's now arguing for the matter that is being raised. And there was a huge debate. I won't tell you which side of the debate was our leader, Albert Luthuli. I won't mention names. But there was a debate. He was debating vehemently himself. Finally, the decision was taken that yes, indeed, the time had come. Now again, it is important when we think about Chief Luthuli that it was during his presidency, firstly, that the Freedom Charter was born. It was also during his time that the change of the method of struggle as a decision was taken. And many, because that discussion of the armed struggle was underground, thought that he was not party to it, because it was now underground situation. And I remember one of the comrades who was a leader here was once a provincial organizer giving evidence in our court in 1963, saying that this policy of armed struggle is Mandela thing, is not Luthuli thing. But when they agreed, they wanted everyone, including other alliance organizations, to be part of this debate so that the decision is taken broadly. Albert Luthuli insisted that we need everybody on board. So it was agreed that a broader meeting should be called. And some of the comrades who had been arguing against the armed struggle asked a permission to be allowed to start where they started in the next meeting. They were given the chance. I won't tell you which side was Albert Luthuli in those debates. And there was a huge debate again, until the entire Congress movement was swayed to accept this reality. Then to say the ANC as an ANC cannot say we are now declaring the armed struggle. But let us have a method. We must therefore have a military wing of the ANC. We should operate separately from the ANC to avoid mass arrest of the ANC members. But also, it is important to know that before this decision, in the Eastern Cape, at the Pondoland area, the masses there, the leaders of the ANC there, reached a point that they want to launch the armed struggle. But as disciplined cadres of the movement said, we can't do this without the president knowing, meaning President Luthuli. So they agreed to send a delegation here in Groundville to discuss what they decided they wanted to do, to hear what the president is saying. They came indeed and held a discussion underground with Chief Luthuli. And raised the matter very sharply. They believe time has come. If not ready in other places, in Pondoland is ready. And Luthuli, when he listened to them after a long meeting, he said, I'm convinced you are correct and you see the need. Let us then discuss how do we avoid mass arrest, because if the ANC said, we are now launching the armed struggle, ANC members, all of them will be arrested. You need also to raise in a different name. In fact, the name that was, the Pondo Revolt was called, was crafted here to say, yes, we are ANC, but we are going to raise that as the Pondo peasants. So it was with the knowledge of Chief Luthuli, as the president, gave them the permission to do so. That was another challenging political decision of a leader who was leading overtly an organization that was known to be non-violent. Let me leave the Pondo. Then, when it was discussed about this military wing, what is going to be its name that will fit its nature? It was named by Chief Albert Luthuli. And he told a short story to make the matter to be understood that if we reach this point of going for armed struggle, it's a serious matter. And he said, if you are a man and you are fighting with another man out there, and he realizes you are weak, the place you run to is your home. But if the man follows you, now some people may not understand what Luthuli was saying. Generally, when the warriors fight here, they fight with sticks, fair fight. And if you move to your home and the person follows you, he asks the question, now we are here with your family. He still follows you. What do you do? He answered the question himself, that you take your spear that is always in the room, and you use it to stab this person. And he said, now that you are having a military wing, it should be the spear of the nation. He named MK to be umkhonto wesizwe. Cheers. I'm touching upon these moments of Chief Luthuli, our president, because you might not know some of the elements, how much he was involved in the underground structure. There is no decision that was taken without him. Of course, a decision was taken that Nelson Mandela must lead the initiative. And it meant that he must therefore disappear, go underground, be the commander-in-chief. But they had to prepare the people. And he was aware of this. When Mandela went to address the nation in Pietermaritzburg, this was a decision of the National Executive Committee that included uMadlanduna. It is also true that when Madiba came back from abroad, after reporting at headquarters, he said, I must go and report to the president. And he came here to Groundville to report to President Luthuli. When he was arrested, he was from here, because he said, in no way I cannot report to the president. I'm under his command. Chief Luthuli displayed a leadership that all envied at the time. He trusted a communist called Moses Kotane, that if he was not in the meeting and the report was given, he will ask, what was Moses Kotane's view on this matter? And if he hears that one, he says, fine, I'm happy. He was an honest man, an honest president, honest in the church, honest in everything he did, honest in the struggle, articulated his views to help strengthen the organization, exemplary behavior. And he used to engage. He was a debater of note. These are elements, I believe, with time, those who are doing Madlanduna's history, they must research so that all his colors come out. Because for a long time, because the ANC is a very secretive organization, some believed he was not involved in the armed struggle. He was deeply involved. He was part of the decisions that were taken. He did not find a contradiction, by the way, between the traditional leadership and Christianity. He combined all of these. The oppressors sought to silence him through all means possible, including stripping him of the chieftaincy and imposing banning orders because of his political activities. Again, another important political moment. When he was told by Pretoria, you cannot be a chief at the same time and be the president of the organization that is fighting government. Choose between the two. And he said, I'm not choosing. I was elected by the people to be the president. I was also elected by the people of Asemakoren to be the chief. I'm not going to do so. And indeed, they then took what they could take away from him, the chieftainship. They were trying to intimidate him, to silence him all the time. These attempts only hardened his resolve to end apartheid. Chief Luthuli is a symbol of peace and unity. And in his memory, we must recommit to the South Africa he envisaged. A committed freedom fighter, he outlined this vision for South Africa as follows in the Nobel Peace Prize lecture on the seat of the Nobel Peace Prize from the Norwegian Nobel Committee in 1960, which he accepted in 1961. When Luthuli was given this, there was an excitement in the country. When he left, because he had not been seen because of the bannings, from here up to Durban, there were people forming long lines just wanting to see him. He ate lunch at Himalaya Hotel. Volunteers were here wanting to see him. And indeed, he was something else. South Africa looked like it's changing on that day. He stated with humility as follows in Norway on receiving the award, and I quote, "This award could not be for me alone, nor for just South Africa, but for Africa as a whole," unquote. Once again, a demonstration of a real Africanist, not narrow, not thinking about South Africa only, but thinking about Africa, which was colonized by European countries. Broader in view, not just fighting for South Africa, but for Africa. He used that lecture to outline the type of South Africa he envisaged and what the oppressed black majority was fighting for. He said, and I quote again, "The true patriots of South Africa for whom I speak will be satisfied with nothing less than the fullest democratic rights. In government, we will not be satisfied with anything less than direct individual adult suffrage and the right to stand for and be elected to all organs of government. In economic matters, we will be satisfied with nothing less than equality of opportunities in every sphere and the enjoyment by all of those heritages which form the resources of the country, which up to now have been appropriated on a racial whites only basis. In culture, we will be satisfied with nothing less than the opening of all doors of learning to non-segregatory institutions on the sole criterion of ability. In the social sphere, we will be satisfied with nothing less than the abolition of all racial bars, unquote. Luthuli uthi kune white monopoly. Luthuli, there is white monopoly in South Africa. Abazi indaba. Shares again. Importantly, Chief Luthuli outlined consistently the ANC believe in non-racialism. He underlined how the ANC was guiding the country towards this goal in spite of the difficult state of race relations in the country. He stated in the Nobel Peace Prize lecture that the racism problem in the country was acute compared to other parts of Africa, and that, and I quote, "Perhaps in no other country on the continent is white supremacy asserted with greater vigor and determination and a sense of righteousness, unquote. He added, the racism meted out against black people would have made it easy for the natural feelings of resentment at white domination to have been turned into feelings of hatred and a desire for revenge against the white community. However, his organization, the ANC, had chosen the path of non-racialism for the country, and he declared, and I quote again, our vision has always been that of a non-racial democratic South Africa, which upholds the right of all who live in it, who live in our country, to remain there as full citizens with equal rights and responsibilities with all others. For the consummation of this ideal, we have labored unflinchingly. We shall continue to labor unflinchingly. Close quotes. As our country's experiment with constitutional democracy continues, this is one key lesson that we must take to heart from Chief Luthuli, even during difficult moments when we feel the non-racial project is faltering. We all have a responsibility to build a non-racial society and to unite all our people, black and white. Our struggle for liberation had strong international pillar. Chief Luthuli acknowledged the contribution of the national community, of international community, while also acknowledging the responsibility of South Africans to be their own liberators. And in dealing with the problems facing the country, Chief Luthuli uttered the profound words on the need for courage that rises with danger. Indeed, we are in that phase in our country where we need to be stronger and more steadfast in defending and protecting our country and to consolidate democracy. We need courage that rises with danger. Compatriots, as we mark 23 years of democracy, we ask ourselves what Chief Luthuli would say if he were with us today. I have no doubt that while he would be disheartened by the persistent poverty, inequality, and unemployment, he would equally be encouraged by the level of progress our democratic government has made since the dawn of freedom in 1994. He would be pleased that the country has almost reached the universal primary education threshold ahead of many other developing countries. He would also be happy that we have managed to expand our social safety net in terms of housing, social grants, and the provision of basic services to indigent families for free, including the provision of financial assistance to over 12 million students through the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. The province of KwaZulu-Natal has the highest incidence of HIV and AIDS. Chief Luthuli would appreciate that we have a comprehensive HIV and AIDS intraviral national treatment program which has served many lives in our country and makes our people live longer. He would appreciate the efforts of the leaders of various sectors and the government of this province in particular to defeat this disease through the flagship project Sukuma Sake that is commended by UNAIDS. The rate of HIV infection remains unacceptably high, with over 2,000 new infections a week. Young people aged 15 and 25 are the most vulnerable of groups. In his memory, we urge especially our young people to practice safe sex and to refrain from it where possible until they are ready to settle and build strong families. We urge you to heed the call and join the She Conquers campaign. That's a new campaign waged by government to help the young girls in particular not to be tempted to indulge in sex in early days. The campaign has been launched, but I believe with government that government itself must also launch a campaign for the boys, because it is the boys who are more active in this kind of life. They are the ones who take initiatives, etc. So they must also be persuaded. Compatriots, in Chief Luthuli, we celebrate his contribution in the struggle against patriarchy, to which he gave practical expression as Inkosi of the Amakholwa people. He invited women in the village to participate in civil affairs and in the actual conflict resolution deliberations. At that time, women had just gained the right not so long ago to become members of the ANC National Executive Committee. Lillian Ngoyi had been elected as the first woman to join the ANC NEC in 1956. It is important to recount this courage, to recount his courage in widening into a territory which only a few men dared to traverse. He was the courage. It was this courage that was to become an inspiration for his successor, Comrade Oliver Tambo, who agitated without fail for women's rights. It is thus fitting that we remember Luthuli, just like O.R. Tambo, in that kind of sequence. And as a staunch champion of gender equality. In this regard, it is equally apt to invoke the spirit of O.R. Tambo in this lecture, since he would be turning 100 years this year. While we have made considerable progress on the gender equality front, Luthuli should have been deeply pained by the high levels of violence, of violent crime against women and children in our society today. We will continue to take positive measures and work closely with the communities to root out this scourge. I cannot conclude this talk without some reflective conversations about values and ethics in the context of the Mandela Month. We have just celebrated and commemorated International Nelson Mandela Day early this week. In this regard, and as Luthuli would have implored us, the values of our Constitution that so many sacrificed for should provide us with the moral and ethic edifice from which we can draw sustenance and a sense of purpose. These values have a universal appeal as they are premised on Ubuntu, the sense that our survival as our survival and well-being is interdependent, that I am because you are. Chief Luthuli was a practical exponent of these values as exemplified in his quest for equality, especially gender equality, non-racialism, openness, respect, and his fervent fight against all manifestation of tribalism. The values of respect, selflessness, openness, and accountability all optimize who Chief Luthuli was. We are therefore duty-bound to learn from him and find ways in which his ideals and values can find a practical expression in our day-to-day lives. I thank the members of the Luthuli family and the Luthuli Museum management for the sterling work they continue to do in ensuring that the legacy of this giant of our liberation struggle lives on. Through the museum, generations will be able to find out more about this gentle giant of our struggle and this icon of the African continent. We lost our leader 50 years ago in suspicious circumstances, but we must take solace in the fact that his legacy lives for generations to come, to learn and build on, to make our country a united, non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous society. Long live the spirit of Chief Albert Luthuli, our president. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President.
That was the President of the Republic, Mr. President Jacob Zuma, speaking at the 50th anniversary of the death of Chief Albert Luthuli out at Grootville in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, the President spoke extensively about the life and times of Chief Albert Luthuli, also speaking about him being a staunch champion for gender equality, saying he would be deeply pained by the high levels of violence against women and children right now, but also committing that the ANC-led government will continue their efforts to bring that scourge to an end, also touching on the suspicious nature in which he died.
And be able to